call this meeting of the Town of Grafton IT Committee to order at 7:01 and 6 seconds p.m. As we are all on Zoom, I will need to call the roll of the members and note for the record that any votes we take will be by roll call. So, Mr. Hassinger.
I'm here.
Mr. Baker.
I'm here.
Mr. Clark. And Mr. Robbins is present. Mr. Carroll is, at the moment at least, absent. And we have...
If we want to follow the rules, we have to hear.
Here.
I mean, the rules.
Yeah. And our guest assistant town administrator, William Blake, is present. And we will proceed with our agenda. Our first agenda item, as always, is public input. We do not have any members of the public in the Zoom meeting as attendees. And unless one of us panelists has input that could be classified as public input, I will assume we have none. I don't have any members of the public here in the room with me. So we will proceed. Our next agenda item is kind of a routine matter, update from town administrator. Evan hasn't passed anything on to me to pass on to the committee. I think our expectation was from the last meeting that not a whole lot was expected to be done over the holiday period. But if Will has any information regarding projects in general that Evan might otherwise have passed on to you, through you to us.
No, we didn't have any major updates. The 365 switchover is still in progress. Our estimate is to have that done this month, I found out today. Beyond that, I know we're going to talk about the website a little bit later, but those were the two biggest things we had going. We did get new copiers in Town Hall today. They are shiny and new. That's about it. And
are they fully network connected?
Oh, they are. It's a glorious thing.
You said that the Office 365 is on schedule to be finished this month, or it was just finished last month?
This month.
All right.
So with that general update, then the next agenda item, which I expected to take up the majority of the discussion tonight for however long we want to keep at it, is the new website. The new website's been online now for getting close to 2 months. And we'll give a moment for our fifth member, Bob Carroll, to get Zoom up and running.
Hey, sorry, it took a few minutes to get into this.
You haven't missed anything of importance. Will just reported to us that in terms of general IT goings on in the town, the Office 365 is expected to be completed before the end of this month. And we got a raft of brand new copiers in the municipal center.
Nice.
And then we were just getting ready to dive into the topic of the new website, which has been live for now somewhere fairly close to 2 months, a month and a half, 6-7 weeks, something like that. And I gather from a conversation or two with some town hall staff that there have been a few teething problems, we sometimes call them, just getting permission set up and getting staff trained and comfortable with using the new website. As Evan had mentioned to us in the previous meeting, that the expectation is that once we kind of get over these initial bumps in the road and everybody gets familiar with it and comfortable with it, that it's expected to be significantly easier for staff to work with the website than the old website was. Not sure if we're entirely there yet. Will maybe can speak to the progress we're making in that direction, and we can talk about anything Will has to report, anything any of us have observed and wish and care to comment on. So I guess I'll ask you, William, if you want to start off by kind of giving us an update on where it is from your perspective.
Yeah. So I did watch the last IT committee meeting. So I am aware of some of the concerns that were brought forward on the topic of permissions. That has been one of the, I guess, more persistent things that we've been working on, because you can really drill down with the permissions on the new website. And so it's a lot of small things like finding out the town clerk's office needs access to this very specific subpage of this board and committee to post a document they get twice a year. And it's just picking out little itty bitty things like that we're slowly working towards. I think we're pretty much done with that. Everybody who needs access to the website has permissions. They've been trained on it. A lot of people are taking it and running with it in a really good way. Like I sat down with Natalia in planning for about an hour and a half a couple of weeks ago, and she picked it up very quickly. She was off to the races. She was doing a lot of fun stuff with it. Sitting down with some of the newer employees, like the head of the Council on Aging, who may have missed the training seminars, and just making sure everybody's on the same page. In regards to public training, I know the topic came up last month and maybe the month before that about doing a GCTV video about how to use some of the new functionality on the website for the general public. That's something we've gotten feedback on from a couple of different people, so that is something we're going to pursue. I was speaking to Bob DeToma about that at the end of last week, and we just are working on getting a script together, figuring out how to best screen record, and we're hoping to have that up in the next couple of weeks. Beyond that, I am happy to answer any specific questions. Dave, I know you had a couple of things you wanted to talk about with the calendar, which seems like it might be a pretty popular topic. So
real quick before we get into the calendar stuff, just regarding the last thing you just talked about the GCTV training. So that was one of the things that I had brought up last month, and it's actually I'm glad to hear that what you said, because I actually just a couple of days ago ran into a couple of people at Cumberland Farms in town, who we had a discussion about the webpage directly, where they're asking me about that very subject. And so I know that there's been a couple of people who have been I guess one of the more common comments that I have received from the general public is that they're not on the page as regular as the town staff is. And so town staff is probably getting used to the new locations for things a lot quicker than what the general public, who may go on once a week or once every so often and then forget where stuff is. So I think that is going to be well received, that there is going to be some training, especially if it's something that can be recorded and then has pretty visibly available from the website, to watch this for training about how to access and such. One of the other questions I was going to ask is something that I see oftentimes on websites, especially when you create a new account on certain websites, that they'll have like a guided tour capability where basically you have the option to either when you first log in or retake it later on, saying, would you like to take a guided tour? And here's the most common things that people are interested in and where to go and how to find it, where it'll basically guide you through there. And so I don't know if that's one of our possibilities we have as well, where that might be something for us to make possible for users to be able to take from the webpage itself, to kind of have them be guided through where the different places on the website would be to look at stuff. So that was really the only things I was going to comment on that subject when it came up tonight.
Yeah, while you're there, I suspect the answer is we really can't staff it, but it'd be nice if there was a place easily seen where you can ask and get a little help, like, where is such and so, or how do I, whatever. Have somebody at the other end who can answer. It sounds like it'd be a problem, but I'll bet after a little bit of time, it wouldn't be, but it'd be nice.
Yeah, I mean, we have all the public contact forms up on the website. Those are all live. So if somebody needs to email myself or anybody else, they can. We can certainly set up, I guess, a dedicated help form. The issue would be we might not get to it as soon as they need it. Yeah.
I think, well, whatever mechanism you can do. But really easy to find. Like up front. So somewhere in the welcome to
Yeah.
the place. Why? Oh, well, no. Okay, go ahead.
Excuse me. Yeah, before we dive into the topic of the calendar, and I happen to know that topic came up in a discussion just last night at the select board meeting very briefly, but before we dive into the topic, I will just mention, and I don't want to spend a lot of time pursuing it because I think it's something that I suspect is going to be something rather more substantial in terms of following up on it. But the website advertises personalization.
Yeah.
And I have yet to find anything that resembles the personalization that's advertised. That may still be a work in progress. There may be something there that's just totally not obvious to me. It may be that the news item that advertises personalization might, point to some sort of a user help, an explanation of what can and cannot be done and how to do it. I don't want to dwell on that tonight because that's, that was a point that I raised in my review back earlier in the fall. And I don't know what Civic Plus is doing along those lines. I suspect that any further work in that direction is probably largely in the hands of Civic Plus. It seems to be their feature.
So when you say personalization, do you mean the personalization that Evan discussed last time about changing font sizes for ADA accessibility and things like that?
Among other things, yeah.
So, and I spoke to Evan about this last month. The changes for font sizes, font color, ADA accessibility, those tools, we had discussed those with Civic Plus. That's actually an add-on through a company they own called AudioEye. That's about $8,000 a year. So that's something we discussed right when we were, entering into a contract to redo the website, but inevitably had to drop due to costs. Unfortunately, I think Evan got his wires a little crossed last month. There's still the ADA checker on the back end when we're posting content, but the front end personalization is not something we have access to at this time.
Yeah, and then there is that news blurb that talks about personalization, and a little bit more general than it. It doesn't address specifically that, but the terms in which it describes the personalization just don't relate to anything I've been able to see so far.
Okay.
And that's a blurb. I mean, it's dated 2016, so it's obviously from Civic Plus. It's not ours.
Correct. This was one of the pre-populated ones they put up that we left up so people could learn how to subscribe to get agendas, get news and announcements, updates, things like that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the text of that announcement seems to imply some personalization that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, it's confusing. It was confusing to me the day I first tried to get in there. And I think maybe reshaping whatever you've got there to match. Makes sense.
Right. So unless we plan on introducing additional personalization capabilities, for instance, I might say that in my account, I'm interested, generally speaking, I'm interested in certain boards and committees. And so when I go to the agenda page, it's sort of preset with the ones I tend to look at. And there's various other possibilities, but some of my expectations along those lines have not been met, and it may simply be that I read more into that than was intended. And so, if nothing else, it suggests that the item on personalization can be sort of rewritten to more clearly say what you as a user can and cannot do to personalize the website to your needs.
Okay, I think that's good feedback. We can look into tailoring that or adding a section to the video tutorial about personalization.
Yeah, because
and if there's nothing that can be personalized, just remove it, I guess, right? I mean, that's the easy way.
There is things to be personalized. The the way people used to be getting agendas and meeting minutes emailed to them when they were posted by the town clerk's office, that falls under that category. It's just apparently not as clear as we would like it to be.
Yeah, the ability to subscribe to agendas and related documents, so that for the most part works a whole lot better than it ever used to. And I was generally, aside from some minor annoyances, like getting multiple emails for each different thing I subscribe to, that depends a little bit upon the sequence in which you do things. But for the most part, the ability to manage your subscriptions is much improved over the old website, and I have very little to complain about with that. And that's sort of the major personalization that you have right now.
Okay, I'll have to drill down on that a little bit more, but that is definitely something we can look into.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not expecting anything extensive, certainly nothing beyond what Civic Plus is capable of providing. It's just that, again, the article that describes it is it raised some expectations in my mind that were not met.
I have a question that this brings to mind. What capability do you have, or are you going to have, to get information on how people use the site? Tell us if, we think that getting agendas and meeting materials is about 90% of what the website's for. Most people want to know whether the trash is going to be picked up when, so it'd be helpful over time to have some of the monitoring.
So, and even on the old site, Civic Plus provides Google Analytics. That is all the data tracking we have. We've had that from the old site up till now.
Yeah, you expect to have that that level of being able to say, oh, we ought to be paying more attention over on whichever function.
Yep.
And okay.
What are the most commonly accessed pages on the site? Is it the calendar stuff, or is it something unexpected?
So the last time I looked, and I haven't looked in a while, it was actually the recreation page was the most visited site. And I'm going to guess that's seasonal based on when I looked. But that was the big standout for me. It was recreation, planning, and agendas.
You know what? That's actually pretty interesting, because Recreation Department is one of the best departments as far as advertising out what they're doing. And they all the time refer to where to find their information and such. So that's actually kind of makes sense when you think about it. That's pretty interesting. Cool. Thanks.
So actually, I just pulled it up. So in the last 90 days, the most commonly visited page was the master department page that lists everybody. And then it was recreation, their just general homepage, followed by the town clerk's voting locations page, and then the treasurer collector's online tax payment page.
So no big surprises there.
No.
Cool. Thank you.
Welcome.
So, calendar. Anybody have any comments on the calendar? I know I have some, but I'd like to get other points of view on that too.
I feel like with a calendar, I feel like at this point there's like I'm kind of just repeating myself a little bit. I don't know that there is really anything new that I feel about the calendar. I mean I made comments about how I feel like it could be a little bit easier to see the stuff presented in a format that that makes it a little bit better to find things. But I think part of that is also on how it gets populated too. But at this point, I mean, I feel like every time we talk about calendar, it's kind of just rehashing my same complaints about the calendar. I don't know. And maybe this is one of those things where different people have different preferences on such. It's just, there's a lot of value adds in the calendar that really aren't value adds when you have like every single day has something. So like having highlighted dates don't really help you too much. You know, like, and just the amount of stuff is just, it seems like it's not super easy to it really just kind of looks like a little bit more polished than what the previous one was, versus having more functionality from the calendar itself to be able to go to meetings or you know, do things directly from the calendar versus opening up additional pages that then you have to click through 3 or 4 pages to get to the stuff. It's just, it feels like a lot of jumps to get to something that could be a lot easier presented you know, higher up in the tree hierarchy.
Yeah. So Bob Carroll, you have your hand up.
Hey, folks. So I was just wondering, I tried searching in the past because I figured today might be in the past, but like, why isn't our meeting visible on the calendar? And why can't I find it?
Yeah, that gets to a comment that Anne Marie made last night at the select board meeting, and you know, I've noticed it off and on, at least, that the calendar doesn't show all the meetings. And although, you know, the meeting agendas have been posted in the agenda center, so arguably the meeting agenda has been properly posted, but I think, you know, sort of, you know, one of my observations is that, you know, when you first bring up on the homepage display of the calendar, my expectation would be, and again, this is my expectation, I don't know if this would be the general public's expectation, my expectation would be to see a listing of the at least the meetings, you know, meetings coming up in the next day or two, or meetings today and tomorrow, or whatever, you know, however much you can populate that space. That doesn't seem to be, it's not clear to me what meetings are chosen for display when you first bring it up. And then, but then when you drill down, you know, when you see what Bob, you just said, and what Anne Marie had said last night was, you know, there are recent meetings, upcoming meetings that we simply don't see on the calendar at all. I was, you know, one of my initial looks at the calendar, I didn't even see how to get from a calendar entry to the agenda. But that turns out that if it's, you know, when it's done right, at least there is a way to do that. And you know, we mentioned
like
that
today, David, there's the Board of Library Trustees is supposed to be meeting in ourselves, and neither one of those are on the calendar.
And then the other thing that puzzled me about the calendars is that there are several distinct calendars, which generally speaking is useful. There is the you know, events, there's meetings, there's recreation, there's Council on Aging, EDC, room reservations. What's puzzling is there's meetings and then there's boards and committees. And why are those two separate categories? That's just puzzling. I don't see, I don't know the difference between those two. So if I was to go looking, I would probably end up clicking both to make sure I got everything I was looking for. But again, right now, you know, today when I look at those in meetings or boards and committees or anywhere else, I didn't see our meeting tonight. There's other meetings that I know have been scheduled and I don't see some. There are some meetings that I see on the room reservations calendar, but nowhere else. And so there may be a disconnect between posting meeting agendas and connecting them to the calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
how it
like, so
works.
the only real way that like I found to see like majority of the meetings is to just go and click on the select a calendar and choose multiple calendars there, because they are split up between different calendars. But yeah, you're right. It's just it doesn't show everything ever.
Somebody who doesn't know that they want to see the planning board, they just want to know what's going on in town. The people that used to read public notices in the newspaper to find out randomly whether there's something they want to know. Should be able to go in there without having to know that there are meetings and where to go look for them. I should be able to have them. May take more work to do an adequate, if I find an adequate approach, because we have a lot of meetings.
Of course, I don't know what Civic Plus offers in terms of capabilities for staff to manage the calendars and how that all works. But I guess, yeah, I don't know if we can, other than raising these issues and questions, William can go and
Do we know how the calendar works? How those events are created?
Yep. So when you're looking at the homepage
Yeah.
and you're seeing the meetings, events, room reservations calendars, so
Yeah.
those are 3 different calendars on the back end that we've told to point to the homepage.
Yep.
The meetings calendar, and the reason we did that is because that was the setup on the old site. We did that as the default. We've been talking about the calendar a lot lately, specifically for a lot of this stuff, because there is a lot more functionality, but the town is so busy that we don't want every event to pop up on every calendar, because then you can't find anything. We do actually have a master calendar on the website with every single event on it, and there's something every single day. So the room reservations calendars, that's typically monitored by the town administrator's office. We use that when we get requests for people who want to book conference room A or B or the gym or something like that. That is mainly so people know it's booked, and so that way maintenance knows that there's going to be somebody in there.
So William, when you say the calendar, that's part of Civic Plus, or calendar in the sense of like Exchange and Microsoft World?
The calendar for this context is all Civic Plus,
The Civic Plus.
because this calendar is run completely through the back end of the website.
yeah, I mean, we had, the old website had a very similar arrangement. They had the meetings calendar and they had the room reservations calendar. There were two kind of separate things, and that makes, when you're managing the meeting rooms, you want to, it makes sense to have a calendar for that. That's distinct from the
Right.
calendar of meetings and events.
So how are the events created? Someone has to create each distinct event manually?
Yeah. So here, if I so everybody has to, each event has to be created manually unless it's a recurring event. So if somebody is renting the gym for a basketball season, and we know they're in there every Tuesday and Thursday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. for 6 months, we can put that in there. That populates the calendar for that time duration.
Are we dealing with like a staff usability issue here? Like because it seems obvious, like looking at the calendar, that the rec center the rec department has their act together on this, and they have all of their stuff in here. But there's a lot of things that are missing as far as like boards and committees and such. Even like no matter what type of search I do, looking through all calendars, there's some that just are never listed. Does that mean that there's someone responsible for putting the stuff in that's not doing that, or putting it in the wrong place? Or is it there somewhere and I just have not figured out how to make that appear?
So, and that's what I was trying to get to. The meetings calendar is run through, specifically through the clerk's office. When they get an agenda, they create the calendar event and they link the agenda to the calendar event. Anything that's missing, I think, is probably a usability error as we're trying to get used to the new system. But that's just internal error on our part. And Alan, if I understood the second half of your question, were you asking specifically for calendars for each department or each board and committee? Because that is a la carte. Rec, Council on Aging need a calendar. The Conservation Commission might not, so that's why they don't have a dedicated calendar on their page.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily mean that as much as just kind of like echoing a little bit of what Bob was saying earlier, that there's not any view on the calendar that I've found that shows some of these department meetings. And the only way that I can find out when those are is by going to the individual board and committee and looking on those pages and then pulling up the most recent agendas from their agenda and minutes place. And then it will pull up what the most recent agenda is, which will then have the information as far as that next scheduled meeting and how to connect and things like that, which theoretically should be available from the calendar. But I like majority of like a large number of these committees and boards, even if you go to the calendar and do a search for meeting, if you go to all calendars where you select every single calendar to see everything and you do a search for some of these committees, there's still nothing that shows up, even though there's valid agendas that are put on the pages on their pages. So that's kind of what I was that's what I was kind of alluding to is that a disconnect somewhere where someone needs to also go and update the calendar for that to pull it in, or is that a tooling issue where something's not working right on the back end?
It's not a tooling issue. That is an internal staff issue.
Okay. So that's just a training thing, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of gets to what I was sort of suspecting, and then just the way it looks is that, the calendar that Civic Plus supports here is capable of doing a pretty good job of presenting information, linking to meeting details and agendas, and supporting several different calendars so that you're not looking at everything all at once. And it's more a matter of us really getting up to speed and making sure that we are consistently posting everything in the calendar in the way that it should be posted. Because clearly we're not 100% on that yet.
Correct. Correct. I'm sorry, I don't know if my microphone picked it up, but yes, that is where it stands at the moment.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't myself spend a whole lot of my time going through the calendar and all the different permutations of what you can look at and how you can see it, because it to all appearances it's we're not 100% on getting everything on the calendar the way we want it.
Yeah, and again, I want to reiterate that this is something we have been talking about internally as well, because again, we set it up like this based on the old website. We're aware that there are some deficiencies and there's things that we definitely want to work on. So in a month, the calendar might look completely different. And then 3 months after that, it might look different again as we figure out what works best. Because again, there's a ton of stuff going on in town and there's a ton of data to track for the calendar.
Yep. So I think that's all that I wanted to talk about with the calendar, but anybody else have anything else on the calendar, or for that matter, any other topic on the website? So on my part, I don't have anything else to bring up at the moment.
I think the searching is improved over the last website. I think that I think both the searching and the calendars are both part of the same thing, where it's so heavily dependent on the people that are providing the content that until that is improved, it's just we're not fully utilizing the possibility of what the site can do. I think that just from feedback from I feel like I'm pretty adept in finding stuff here on this, but when people ask me about how you do certain things, and I just can't find it either. And now hearing here is just because it's not quite there yet. I feel like there is a lot of training work to do, and once that hurdle's cleared, then we'll be able to really evaluate the website for the quality of the website. Because right now, I think the majority of people's complaints are about things that are being affected because of the content being provided by people rather than the actual website functionality right now.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think the average user can be expected to do all that searching that we're talking about, trying to find what they want.
Especially if you're trying to do it from a phone, right?
Well, if it isn't there, it isn't there. No matter whether I'm using a phone or my 4 screens here. But you know, I made my living doing that kind of stuff, writing software and whatnot. But that's not what the service we want to deliver to the town. It should be, I don't know. Oh, why? When I get a message about, I think it's a calendar entry, like planning board, and it still takes me to a page which is just one link on to where it should be. I remember seeing that mentioned, and I thought I saw or heard that had been worked around or gotten rid of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's one of the things I mentioned right at the beginning that drives me crazy. For when you click on something, then it takes you to another page that then has a link to another page that you then have to click on another thing to get to the data that's like for instance, if you're just wanting to look at the agenda or the or the meeting link or something like that, you have to click on the meeting, then you have to click on more details, and then you open up a page, which then you can download the agenda from that in order to find the agenda that you then click on, that then will have another link that you click on that then has the, the meeting link and such in it. So it's like, it's a lot of extra clicks that really shouldn't be necessary.
Yeah, no, I was also trying to figure out, so William, did you get any, because I don't see where there's any contact forms for people to offer, suggestions or just general contact form. If I click on contact, it sends me to the list of, all the users. And then if I go report a concern, I go to get to the citizen request tracker thing, and that just sends me in a do loop, which doesn't go
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah, the citizens request tracker doesn't seem to do anything.
It doesn't allow me to input a request, and it says return to the list.
Yeah, the citizens request tracker, that's one of those things we're drilling down on right now. I don't have access to that either.
Okay.
So, which is concerning. I think my best guess at the moment is the citizens request tracker is related to the more social media blog aspect-y parts of the website that we asked them to turn off and sort of scale back for this website. And there might just be some lingering references to it on the front end.
Yeah.
But I've got a call out to Civic Plus already, trying to get to the bottom of that. So
Okay, yeah,
my hope
'cause
is they get back to me
shouldn't be
tomorrow.
out there because people think that, they're going to be able to submit a request, right? And
Yep, and we've gotten some feedback about that as well, which is how we knew about it and why we're already addressing it.
okay. So how does feedback come in from the customers and community at large?
So every department page has a contact us form on there.
Yeah.
It's typically under a staff name, contact William Blake, contact the town administrator's office. We get things through that. We get comments and direct messages through Facebook. We get phone calls. People walk in and give us feedback. Also under the, which one is it? Under the How Do I tab, there's just a general contact us form that people can submit with general comments to the town, comments about the website, a whole bunch of different categories like that.
How do I contact us form? Okay, and that goes to this form sending thing.
Yep, and that sort of loops back around. We talked about it right at the beginning. I don't know if you were here. We are going to do a training video. We received quite a few requests for that. So that's just one of those things that we'll have to loop in there.
Yeah, because I would think, at the next meeting, if we had some empirical data, right, to look at what are people saying? What's, because I would think we'd want to loop back, right, and say, okay, what are we doing good and what are we not, right? And have some sort of measurement of success or not.
Like
I
a
don't know.
survey, like those smiley faces, rate your website experience.
Yeah, I don't know how much positive feedback we'll get. We typically only hear from people when they can't find something or where there's an issue.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how impartial that data set would be.
I'm the worst offender at that. On my Microsoft Teams meeting, every single meeting afterwards, I always click 1 star as my experience because I can't stand it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if we had the resources, we would conduct a series of user interaction studies where, you know, we observe people attempting to perform a particular task, and we would need to set up a reasonably comprehensive representative set of tasks. We'd watch people use the website to try to accomplish the tasks. We'd observe where they run into difficulties. You know, we get their feedback, running feedback as they're going through it. They would give their comments. So if we had the resources, we could, you know, really do a bang up job of understanding what people like and don't like, and the, you know, the difficulties they run into, the things that are easy, things that are difficult. But that does take a considerable dedication of resources, money and time to do something like that. You know, as a practical matter, I don't see us ever being able to do that, much as we might like to. Another, you know, it occurred to me just to mention, this is just to mention, as both a compliment and a complaint, the agenda section, the fact that the agenda section nicely, it not quite in the way I would have designed it, but that's on Civic Plus. It's the limitation imposed by Civic Plus. But on the, for a given meeting, you can get to not only the agenda, but provided that staff posts it, all the meeting materials. Like for the planning board, we post all the meeting documents as separate documents. For the select board, as an example, they collect the documents into a PDF packet, but that's also posted. So you're going to the one place and you get ideally everything related to that meeting. So you don't have to go look here for the meeting packet, there for the video, there for the minutes, there for the agenda. It brings it together in a way that I think is pretty helpful. Again, I would have designed the user interface on that slightly differently to reduce the number of clicks it takes, but that's neither here nor there. The complaint, if I have one, and this is, it's merely a question of staff resources, that I would like to be able to go back years on planning board meeting materials. And all due respect to the staff in the office, they don't have time to re-upload all of those from the old website to the new one. And maybe some of that will happen over time as they have spare time to catch up on reloading old stuff that was on the old website. And as far as I could tell, a lot of that stuff remained on the old website, even if the only way to get to it was with a search function. But I was able to find some historical documents that I needed, by going back, and searching the other website. It's not all there. There was something I was looking for the other day that's not there on the new website from a meeting from February of last year. But I'm not going to fault the website for that. It's just a matter of, we weren't going to pay Civic Plus to transfer every document over, from going all the way back, and staff only have so much time available. So that's just and the other thing, going back to the discussion that some of us had prior to starting the meeting, the organization of project documents for planning board projects and projects overseen by the zoning board there should be more commonality than there is in how that is all put together. But then that's a decision of the respective boards or the staff that are in charge of those areas of the website. And it's it's within our control to be able to improve on that over time. So just observations and comments. Anything else?
Dave, if I can ask, what was it, a project page that was missing or meeting documents? Because all the project pages they ported over.
Right, the project. What it is, we had the meeting materials from all the planning board meetings.
Yep.
And what we've ported over, at least so far, other than the most recent few meetings, going farther back, like I said, I was looking for one from February of last year. The agenda is there, but none of the other meeting materials were there.
Okay, yeah, it looks like they've stopped the planning board meeting materials in about June of last year.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
it's occasionally it would be interesting to have access to meeting materials from farther back than that. I presume that in the case of the planning board, at least, they're probably on the server somewhere locally. But if I really needed to, if I got desperate, I'd probably ask Natalia if she could dig it up. But
I sort of have to infer how it all works now. But on the prior site, I had the impression that there was basically a page or a folder full of documents for a project. And then there were links where the link in our agenda, in the planning board agenda, would point at that, and other, I think there were some other cases that also pointed to the same thing. But there was that project, and there was quite a long list of projects that went back quite a long ways. I was able to look back, not to the one I want, of course, but I was able to look back a long ways.
yeah, so the development
That seems to be the way it ought to be. That makes a lot of sense. It shouldn't be agenda. It should be cases.
Yeah.
For at least what the planning board does, and I think the ZBA.
Yeah, and so I think there's a couple of subjects that we're discussing here. The projects, we've got them listed under the development projects on the website, and that's subdivided into on the planning board side, that's subdivided into projects in the permitting phase, decisions rendered, projects under construction, and completed projects, and that's all there. As far as I can tell, that's all been ported over. So yeah, I don't think we're not missing anything there, unless you wanted to go back. I actually wanted to see if I could dig up a document from a 2012 project, and not surprisingly, that wasn't there. There's a separate page for affordable housing projects for the 40Bs overseen by the ZBA. But what and so there's that, and there could be sort of the ZBA development projects, the comprehensive permits or 40Bs, kind of go together logically. They sort of fit together with the various development projects that are permits given by the planning board. So there could be more commonality in how those are organized. You were mentioning, Bob, in one part that some of the documents are on the ZBA side, they're not listed in chronological order, where we do list them in chronological order in the planning board side. But then I'm looking at meeting materials. And in the meeting materials, we have, let's see, I'm looking at one of the most recent ones here. We have on the meeting materials page, we have something that looks very much like our old meeting materials page, where it's got links to the documents that were posted for that meeting. It's got links to the project pages for the projects that are going to be reviewed by that meeting. So I'm looking at the one here for December 12th, and that looks enough like what we used to see to sort of meet our needs for, gathering up all the documentation for a given meeting in one place, but it's all, linking to documents that are posted just for the meeting. And that's the part that it would be nice if we had that going further back than June. But they've also got the links, and we've talked about this before, for the planning board, links to the project pages for the project that will be discussed as part of that meeting agenda. So that's at least the latest planning board meeting is done in a way that, to me at least, looks a lot like we used to do it. And it's comfortable. It has everything I think I need to work with.
Yeah, and just to touch on that a little bit, I know Evan brought it up last time, but it is a goal of ours because we have all of the old meeting agendas, all the minutes, things like that. We are going to try to get up as many historic documents as we can, going as far back as we can in some cases. So if you wanted to talk to the planning department, the town planner, to see if they have those documents and want to allocate the staff time, they might be interested in that, but it's not one of those things that's going to happen overnight. That'll probably be an in perpetuity project.
Yeah, that kind of gets back to what I was saying about, requiring staff. It requires staff resources to put those older documents up on the new website, even though they were on the old website. But as we've discussed before, there's only so much we could ask Civic, only so much we were willing to pay Civic Plus to transfer over for us.
Correct.
So if I had to sort of say this is what the website looks like to me today, it's in most respects vastly, significantly improved over the old one. It's got some good, useful capabilities, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I think that in the next couple of months, as staff really learns how to use the website and all the functionality and all the tools we have with us at our disposal, I think the new website is great. A lot of hard work went into it from everybody in the municipal center. I think it will only get better with time. So that is my opinion on it.
Yep. So I'm sure we as a committee, I'm certainly interested in continuing to observe and review the progress that we're making on the website. And I imagine all of us are interested in contributing any thoughts we have or can towards further improvements. So, anything else anybody has to say on the website?
Yeah, except I forgot.
It's fine, Bob. You can shoot me an email tomorrow. I'm always happy to hear from you.
I'm sure you are. That makes your day, right? Oh no, not another.
There was one funky thing that I noticed when you sign up for emails from the various lists on the website. Every time you select that checkbox to send yourself emails, it has this pop-up that says like, one more thing, we're going to have to confirm your email. But it doesn't actually confirm your email every time. It only does it the first time. I just thought that was odd. It's not like a problem or anything like that. It just seemed odd to me that the way that
It's kind of squirrely too. I noticed that just because I was picking away at it and signing up for everything. So did it like the first two, and then I blasted through a whole mess of them, and then it aggregated them and sent them all as one.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of, yeah, I don't know what the algorithm is, but yeah. And I didn't expect it to be, an email coming to confirm, but it does.
Yeah, I thought that was confusing. And I was thinking at that point, while I was confused, that maybe it would have been good back there when you were doing the clicking, that it would say, what's going to happen now?
Yeah,
We're going to send you an email.
right.
Or if you sign up for text message notifications, you will get a text message to confirm your subscription.
Hmm.
And these functions, yeah, they're not unfamiliar to me from signing up for other listservs and, and email notifications. So it wasn't unexpected, but, as you, Alan, and you, Bob, both observed that you're not always sure what to expect in terms of when am I going to get that confirmation email? What can I expect to happen? And I think the first time I signed up for a couple of, I got a confirmation email for each one that I signed up for. And then I did 2 or 3, must have done them together because I got one confirmation email for several of them. So it's, yeah, and I wasn't going to try to figure out, well, go back and forth and figure out, well, how exactly does this thing work?
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say that I was surprised or that it was unexpected the way the confirmation happened, other than it does appear a little funky on the rhyme or reason on how it does it. But I think this is one of those cases where for people who do regular sign up for things and are used to that type of confirmation message, is probably old hat. But for people who don't generally do that, it's probably pretty confusing too. It's like, well, what does this mean? And that they don't even necessarily know to look for it. So I think that's a good point that Bob had, as far as just some better clarification on what to expect to happen.
Oh, well, when we're done with that, I think I've got the question.
Out
Wait.
with it.
Are we ready?
So just Amar, to your point, I just went into the notify me section and I'm clicking through it a little bit. I did get that pop-up message, but mine had a button at the bottom saying "Don't show this again." But I clicked and it hasn't popped back up yet, so I'm waiting for the confirmation email to come through on my personal email, and I'll further examine that.
Okay,
Is that
yeah, and it
tied-
seems to take a few minutes to come through
Yeah.
on mine.
Yeah, is that tied to cookies or is it tied to your profile setting wise? Because maybe that might behave different depending on what people's cookie settings are for websites.
I believe it's just tied to your account setting and your
Is it?
email.
Okay.
Yeah, and to be fair, I didn't check the "Don't show this again" box.
Yeah. So Bob.
Yes. I get to, where is it, meeting materials, I think. Over on the right, I have a choice of 3, PDF, HTML, packet. I don't know what that's supposed to be accomplishing.
It lets you download all the meeting materials under that meeting.
Well, but there are like 2 or 3 or 4. Are there some HTMLs and some PDFs, and I have to click each one to download different kinds? What's the
No.
point of that?
It'll be the same content no matter which one you pick. You're just picking what format you get it in.
Well, except that I haven't, the times I've tried it, I don't think I got it in any different format. I got,
That's an interesting thing. At least when I was poking at that back in the fall, before the website was really went live. I don't think it's changed since then. It doesn't really look any different. I think the only time I noticed any real difference was if I had a meeting, if I had multiple documents and I asked to download them as a packet, it would package them up as a PDF, but everything else just came up as a PDF in another browser tab, and which is partly to do with the settings on my browser. But I don't recall off the top of my head. I might have written that in my review document as to what I found with that. But I think to me, the different formats, with some combinations of document formats on the website, the download format might be different depending on whether you select HTML or PDF or packet.
I think you select them, but you always get them as PDF. That's what I'm seeing. That's how they're always delivered as a PDF.
Yeah, that may be true, but that doesn't fit real well with some of the planning board stuff. I had a go around today, yesterday and today. Natalia asked me asked us a couple days ago if any of us had gone out for the balloon test for Paulette Street. And I said yes, and I hadn't really taken any pictures, and I said yes. And I guess she asked for them if possible. So they're JPEGs from my phone up to I can get it from my computer, and I drag them into the mail and send it off to her. And she said she couldn't download them. She was having trouble with it. Could I send them as attachments? Well, I think they're attachments. That's the way mail works. But really kind of confusing. The thing is that I think the JPEGs in this case are really what you want, because they're the ones that have enough detail to see the balloon and the balloon test. They also have metadata that documents when and where the pictures were taken, which is very helpful. It should be in the record. So that's all right. That was today's confusion.
Yeah, so if you are doing the download on the side of the document center, and you download it as a PDF, what it's going to do is it's going to spit out a PDF that you can download and save, but it's going to look very similar to the meeting materials page, where it's going to link to all of the other documents on the website. So if the document on the website is a JPEG, it's not going to convert that to a PDF when you pull it down.
Yeah, well, she wanted me to send her the attachments as PDFs if I could, because she couldn't download these. I'm sending them to her. She couldn't handle them. She couldn't deal with them. But well, JPEGs are JPEGs.
Yeah, that might be more of an email issue than a website issue.
Well, it worked. The email came to me, and it worked. So I don't know. We get that kind of thing sometimes. Anyway, when you have nothing to do for a day or two, walk over and see what is going on, because I think we should be able to handle the source format, the original format that we want to capture on material that's sent in, and be able to get it back when we're trying to access it.
Okay.
Not just us, but the world. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, not to troubleshoot it here, but I know that in Outlook, a lot of times you have a button at the top of the email that will allow you to download external images and stuff like that. It may have just been something that she missed, right? Because by default, you can embed a malware or whatever inside of an image if it's maliciously formed. So by default, I think Office will ignore those types of embedded files in emails, and you have to actually do something to see them.
Yeah, it depends on your organization configuration for your Office 365. But generally that is correct, that it will not allow you to directly view harmful data or possible harmful data. It could be set up to where from outside senders or from all senders. There are a couple of different options that it could possibly be set up as.
I think that might be problematic. Anyway, with the way we have people desperately sending information for tonight's meeting at 5:30 in the evening, you know. And that stuff, you know, that's a Microsoft-ism. That those of us who use Macintosh don't have those problems.
Yeah, so that, I mean, so that's, so yeah, so that, I mean, that is a Microsoft setting, but it's also generally best practice to not just automatically display things that have been in the past proven methods for people to install ransomware on systems and be attack vectors for harmful or malicious activities. So things like PDF files, JPEGs, and stuff have all been pretty hot topics in the past for ways that people can send malicious emails and get someone to infect their system by pulling content via this malicious JPEG. And so, yeah, I mean, I understand your viewpoint that it could be problematic, especially for people that aren't used to seeing that message, but that's one of those cases where it really is there for a good reason, I feel.
Well, did she miss a way to get that material, or are we set up so that she can't?
We're dealing with hypotheticals here. I mean, I don't know that there's a way without us actually seeing her email in front of us what the case is here.
Well, anything else on the website? We will revisit this topic. I think, you know, Evan and William have been sort of switching off attending our monthly meetings. So if we stick to that schedule, then the March meeting will be William's next opportunity to get grilled on the website or to receive compliments on the website. Or
I know William probably has it circled on his calendar as a day to look forward to.
yeah.
You know, I do. On the off month, I've got another meeting I got to go to, so it's a nice balance. You know.
All righty. Well,
They treat you well over there.
You treat me well over here too. You know, I enjoy coming.
Well, so I know that I definitely do. I'm sure we all appreciate your willingness to come here and talk through all this stuff. I mean, I hope that it's received in the spirit that it's meant that we're all trying to help provide things to make it better. So.
Yeah, and I hope this committee knows that Evan and I both take the feedback seriously, and we do try to implement it as quickly and efficiently as we can. But unfortunately, that's not always as quickly or efficiently as we want.
Well, there are certain constraints we operate under. You know, constraints in terms of what Civic Plus is capable of doing, and constraints in terms of the resources we have, you know, to put into leveraging the capabilities of Civic Plus.
Yeah. Yep.
So we will expect to see continued improvements in the website as time goes on and as everybody gets more familiar with how it works. Anything else? If not, we have, I think, just one more agenda item. Just looking ahead on the agenda, I don't know that we have any reason to go into executive session, nothing to discuss that requires an executive session. So the only real agenda item we have left is the review of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I move approval as drafted with any minor changes we might need.
I'll second that.
Aye, moved and seconded that the minutes of the December 7th meeting be approved as drafted with any corrections that might be noted during discussion of the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Baker.
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger.
Aye.
And Mr. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. The minutes are approved. And with that, we've
move
reached
we
the end of the
adjourn.
agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded that this meeting be adjourned. Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
Mr. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
And Mr. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. We are adjourned.